Hello students, welcome to today's daily news analysis. As always, we are doing the Hindu newspapers Delhi edition. So front page, I think you get a fair bit of idea what all things are there. Now I want to highlight certain things. So we have an article on Naga issue. This is not a opinion or editorial. It's about the viewpoints of some government officials and uh, and Naga politicians. So they have come to Delhi to negotiate on the Naga issue. So this is important from the point of view of GS3 internal security, and we get good points today. Okay, so good points. I think I have shared it on the Telegram also. If not, I'll do it later. Okay, this is there. Then we have RBI has updated digital lending norms. So the theme of digital lending, obviously digital lending norms for me to explain is nothing much actually. It's the same thing, right? What is there? I'll be just be reading it. So I'm sharing the link. I found a good explainer in the business standard paper. So I've shared the link on the Telegram. I've already shared it, and it is more of a Jago Grahak Jago, that is creating awareness. Okay. Now digital lending apps, Google Play Store banning some digital lending apps. So this thing is also coming up these days. So the issues and concerns associated with digital lending. This is an important theme associated with again GS3 economy as well as security, cyber security. So yeah, so this thing is mentioned in today's newspaper, right? So some further points are there. Okay, now let's quickly move on to the newspaper. India-China troops disengage at LAC friction point in Ladakh. So it says point, not points, right? So one particular area. So this is a good news. This is a positive news. So some progress taking place with reference to India-China border dispute. Now, how come suddenly this has happened? This is happening just a week before the SCO summit is going to take place. Where is the SEO summit taking place? It is taking place in Uzbekistan. So here, leaders of India, Pakistan, China, Russia, and Central Asian countries would be there. So maybe it is in this backdrop that India and Chinese leader can meet, so they can have a cordial talk. Maybe this thing has been gotten resolved, right? So some progress from the Chinese side. Okay, so let's move forward. Next part. Longest reigning monarch of UK, Elizabeth II, dead, right? So yeah. Why was West Bengal left out of talks with Bangladesh? We have been talking about Sheikh Hasina coming to India. Who's Sheikh Hasina? The Prime Minister of Bangladesh coming to India. What all deals they are going to talk about? Particular importance was the Teesta River dispute talks, right? So water sharing agreement over Teesta River, and Teesta River passes through the West Bengal, and the subject of water is a state subject. So India could have dealt with West Bengal also, or she could also be a stakeholder in this issue, right? So this she is scribbling over here. Why was West Bengal left out of talks with Bangladesh? So West Bengal also has a stake. Why not engage them also? So you see here we see something more. We see the friction between the center and state, right? So this is an important theme. So you get 1 point over here. Rajpath, a symbol of slavery, erased, right? So now it will be known as Kartavya Path. Rajpath, ruler's way. So rule. Now the rule, it's not about ruling. It's about doing your duty, to empower, to do good for the society. So Kartavya Path. So the Rajpath was a symbol of slavery. The colonial people, the Britishers had made this. Right? President's house was what? It was the house of the Governor General. So Modi inaugurates Kartavya Path. Okay. Delimitation of civic votes. Draft report to be out in 10 days. Fine. Now this, we are talking about delimitation of civic votes. What does this mean? Civic votes. Civic votes basically means constituency, right? So it means constituency for urban local bodies, election to urban local bodies. So these constituencies At the local body level, these are known as urban local body level. It is known as wards. So defining the boundary, right? Defining the boundaries or marking the boundaries. This exercise is known as delimitation, setting limits of the ward. So it's defining the boundary. Okay, so this will take place. Now I was thinking like there is a specific delimitation commission which takes place for parliamentary elections or for state legislative elections, right? So for state legislature, and this is constituted based on the Delimitation Commission Act. That is an act, a law created by the Parliament. But what happens at the local body level? So what happens over there? So at that level, it is for the state legislature, the respective state legislature, to decide how the wards will be delimited, how their boundaries will be defined. So it is specific for different states, have different rules. Now, is there a delimitation commission that is formed, or is it the state election commission that marks delimits? So there is no clarity as such. Some states have delimitation commission created by a statute of the state legislative assembly. Some states, they simply have state election commission, right, a constitutional body which delimits the boundaries. Children selling drugs, video, police arrest to fine. What is alarming is children selling drugs, right? So this is a problem, and this is a social problem. So GS1, it's an internal security issue. The issue of drugs is always internal security. So GS3, right? So I think this is sufficient. AAP seeks to position itself as a serious contender in Haryana, right? So we have this Delhi newspaper, North region, so that focus is given. So typically Congress and BJP were there, but now we have the Aam Aadmi Party wants to be a serious contender. It is in Punjab, Gujarat, Haryana, so Goa also, the number of states. The fatal lure of instant loan. This is what I was saying. This is digital lending, right? So fatal lure of instant loan apps. So we have this. We're not reading the entire thing. I think this is sufficient. We can do with this thing, right? We have some facts also over here. I'll share it on the Telegram. I'll share it on Telegram only. I'll keep it to Telegram. Okay. Yeah. So what are the concerns? One, I think his loans are easily accessible. Digital loans are easily accessible to people's propensity to borrow money increases. People borrow money when they don't have money and they don't have paying capacity. So initially, the people lure, like even I have housing loans, etc., but my income is not sufficient enough to pay for the housing loan EMIs also. But I have pre-approved loans. And imagine, but for that I have to do a lot of formalities with whichever bank I have. But with digital lending apps, this becomes very, very easy, and the loans can be handed over. Loans can be lent, but simply by a click of a button, right? Series of clicks, and you have the loan ready. So this has a tendency of pushing more and more people into the trap of bankruptcy and eventually impoverish them. So this is a major concern, not mentioned over here. So this is a problem. Besides, certain points have been mentioned that there is inadequate transparency about how information is collected, why it is collected, and how it will be used. So this is a problem. Sometimes too much information is also taken from your mobile phone, right? When you install the application, and when you're not able to pay the money, you are harassed. The one who has borrowed, they are harassed with their phone contacts, photos, or any other sensitive data. So they are harassed to harass the borrowers and their friends and family. I think you get some idea, right? Okay. No option for users to update, manage, export, and delete their own data after the loan has been paid. Even after the loan has been paid, if you have submitted the data, there is hardly any option for update, manage, export, delete. Some apps do not disclose their partner banks or NBFC. How is this app, which is giving you money, from where is this money coming? Naturally, some bank would be there, some NBFC would be there, non-banking financial company. So from where it is coming? Sometimes it is seeing that the money is coming from China, or it is used for routing money back to China, spray, hawala, routes, etc. So it is used as a tool for money laundering also. Now here we have major factors for growth of digital technology. Finds a smartphone, big data analytics, machine learning, or artificial intelligence, enabling environment for technological development. I think you can see all this over here. Now we have NCRB report, that is Nagaland talks in extortion, Assam in sedition cases. I think that is sufficient, right? So it's basically saying that more number of sedition, extortion, hate crimes are taking in with states. That's all. Right? Okay. Karnataka stage set for smooth passage of anti-conversion bill. Nothing really has been mentioned about the anti-conversion bill, so we'll wait for this thing, right? But this is a very important theme, especially from the point of view of Article 25. There's freedom to practice, profess, propagate one's own religion. So it is going to be a constitutional debate. Okay. Karnataka BJP to hold Jan Sampanda Sampatana. Odisha government cancels shrimp culture leases inside Bitter Kanika. Right. So shrimp farming. Shrimp, I hope you know, kind of fish, right? Crustaceans which are had by people eat it like prawns, etc. Okay. So they were being obviously they cultivated. So this land was given in on lease to this, but some corrupt activities came to light by the state Lokayukta, and Lokayukta took action on it. So Lokayukta is an anti-corruption body at the level of states, statutory body. Okay. Next we have Bitter Kanika. Bitter Kanika is in which state? It's associated with which river? Obviously here we know it is Odisha, right? So these basic details we must know. Which all species of animals are there? It's a tropical place, so yeah, similar animals would be there. Next we have the outline of an essential global pandemic treaty. Fine, so very interesting theme. We are talking about the global pandemic treaty. Okay. So does it make sense? Yes, it makes sense. Again, this will be GS2, right? First of all, let me clear this. GS2, even if it is healthcare, but we're talking about international cooperation in the realm of healthcare with reference to pandemic. So, pandemic is something that is spread across the country. So, COVID was an example of a pandemic. Right, so COVID-19, and this article is giving us information with reference to COVID-19. So COVID-19 exposed certain things. For example, it emanated presumably from China. So it starts from there. There was some lack of non-transparency. There were questions about the conduct of the World Health Organization. It was said that they were soft on China, and they allowed the disease to spread. Right, so they didn't take proactive measures. So something required for proactive measures, something required for giving more transparency in matters of healthcare. Okay. In the matters of global health governance, this also needs to be reformed. Okay. Then we saw that the COVID-19, because of the spread, we saw that the healthcare was not able to cope up. The healthcare was not able to cope up, be it advanced countries like United States, be it lesser developed countries like India, etc. So healthcare was not able to cope up. Right? So this was a problem. There was issue with reference to, beyond this, there was issue with reference to availability of diagnostics, testing, availability of vaccines, medicines, etc. So this was again a matter of concern. Then we also learned one more thing during this, that it cannot be like, we saw that USA was able to deal with the situation. It was able to bring it under control, but later other countries were suffering, and the disease again spread back to US. And same is with India and many other countries. So if a disease is there, it is spreading in a particular part of the world, it is highly likely in a globalized world that it will come back to your own country. And we need a one health approach. These are all additional points actually. I'm mentioning all additional points. So one health approach is required. And one health approach means that across the world we need to have an integrated approach to health. One health approach also means that human health, animal health, plant health, all of this, we should have an integrated view on this. Right, so we should collectively deal with this situation. This thing should be very clear. Collectively, we should look at this problem. It is not a problem, a healthcare issue. It's not a problem of a particular country, especially a disease outbreak, but it concerns the entire world, and entire world must cooperate on this. So some points have been mentioned. There should be cooperation on data sharing and genome sequencing of emerging viruses. There should be early warning systems. There should be investments in healthcare, and yeah, so this should be there. I think all of this I have mentioned this in this context itself. Should the mother tongue or English be the medium of instruction? Not doing this, right? This is this thing. I'm not doing this. Yeah. Typically, they say that it should be vernacular, and then English is also required, learning in English, because it opens up more avenues for jobs, higher education, etc. So both should be there. Learning more languages is always a good thing. Okay. Data point, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, Prevention of Money Laundering Act, Section 153A. Should be hate speech, right? Okay. All of them have one common thing it says, that is, there is a very poor conviction rate. Only 3% were convicted, right? So conviction rate is very poor. I'll tell you a lot more other things also. These laws are also used. These are very strong laws. They are very much required, but these laws are also used to curb dissent, right? So it is used to curb dissent, criticism also. We expect a question on all the three themes separately also. Unlawful Activities Prevention Act has already been asked. Then we have had this controversy about non-availability of bail with reference to UAPA. Likewise, Prevention of Money Laundering Act has been amended. It has been made more stringent. More powers have been given to Enforcement Directorate, right? So that is one thing. And money laundering in itself is a theme. Money laundering alone is a theme which is being asked in the GS3 paper. Hate speech and Article 19, reasonable restrictions on your fundamental rights. Okay, US is going to have midterm elections. So midterm elections are going to take place, and who does it concern? It concerns the US Congress, which is basically another term for parliament. So in India, we have parliament. Our legislature is known as parliament at the central level. There it is known as the Congress. Yeah, so this is it. And typically what happens is it really doesn't affect the president as such, but sometimes if there is a Republican Party over here, and at present we have a Democrat leader who's the president, so this sometimes leads to friction between the two. So that's how it's a matter of concern for us. There is another term that is mentioned, that is menace of gerrymandering. This is basically a practice before the elections, that the boundaries of the constituencies are changed in such a way that it favors certain political leaders, right? And so according to we know how the vote share takes place, voting takes place. So defining the consequences in such a way that it favors the people in power, because they only can change the boundaries. And that is gerrymandering. This is very interesting. Heckler's veto cannot be allowed. Okay, I have shared this. I want you to read only. I want you to read this. I have shared this on my Telegram again, right? And this is on reason. Whichever I'm sharing on Telegram is basically because I want you to have notes for your mains examination. That's the basic reason. Okay, So this hijab controversy had taken place. Karnataka High Court, that time previously, Karnataka High Court had said that it is perfectly fine if a school or a college says that you cannot wear a dress, uh, uh, you cannot wear hijab, etc. If the school says you cannot wear the hijab, then it is perfectly fine. If they say it is in not line with the uniform, it is perfectly fine, because in school colleges we want uniformity, and there is a good reason for it. Okay. So we have number of arguments for that. In fact, you do UPSC research, Drishti IAS research, whatever you want to do, you'll find the points over here. The Karnataka High Court also said that not wearing a hijab or wearing a hijab is not essential practice to the religion of Islam. You don't have to wear a hijab. So we really didn't have many points in defense of wearing of hijab over here. So here the viewpoints or the arguments of Devdutt Kamath, who is representing the viewpoint that hijab should be permitted in school and college. Some reasonable accommodation should be there. So we have some points. And some interesting term, heckler's veto. Okay, so let's do this one thing. Fine. Wearing a hijab on the street. So first of all, he says that restrictions can be imposed on one's dress code, etc., or one's freedom of religion, etc., practice of religion, on the grounds that it is offending public order. There is reasonable restriction. Yesterday I had done this also. So reasonable restrictions are there. But wearing a hijab is not really offending public order or sentiment. Right? That is not there. Then during that time when this hijab controversy had taken place, so there were people who were saying, other people who were not in favor of this thing, hijab, so they were protesting. And they were saying, you're not wearing, you're not doing this, you cannot do this. So this he called it as the heckler's veto. If these people, somebody who's heckling, their veto should not be counted. That's what he is saying. They're heckling, they're forcing their viewpoint on the other person. So the state, instead of prohibiting a person who is innocently displaying one's religion, one's symbols, must ensure conditions in which freedoms of wearing one's dress, etc., must flourish. It must allow for reasonable accommodation. Wearing of orange shawls and belligerent display of religion is a belligerent display of religious jingoism. Right, so that when this protest was taking place and people were wearing orange scarf, etc., and they were really protesting also in a hard way. So this is something, this is different from a person who is wearing hijab and not telling any other person what they have to do. So this is, wearing of hijab is basically innocent display of faith. And it is the state's obligation to protect this practice, right? What they want to do, it should be conducive enough for this purpose. Now, with reference to the essential practices test, he says that every practice may not be essential or core religious practice. Wearing of hijab may not be a core religious practice, but that does not mean that the state can restrict it. Right? It can restrict it. It should allow for reasonable accommodation also. After this is the same points actually. A spent nuclear fuel storage should be worked out. So we just have to read over here and think this concludes. This is with reference to the Kudankulam nuclear power plant. Yesterday also we talked about it. It was a matter of an example actually. So it's created with the help of Russian help in Kudankulam, of course, Tamil Nadu. Okay. So there is a protest going on that this is a nuclear site, nuclear power is being created. So the spent nuclear fuel, how should it be stored or how should it be disposed of? Because there is a concern that a legitimate concern that the spent nuclear fuel, if it is not disposed of correctly, then it will have some implications on the people who live nearby. So this is being heard at the Supreme Court. So fuel from Kudankulam nuclear plant has to be worked out. What the Supreme Court has said, it has to be worked out with the help of experts from the AERB. Atomic Energy Regulatory. Now, can somebody check if it is a statutory body or not? Like, if somebody can check, please. So, AERB. And they said that prima facie, they disagree the petitioner's idea that the nuclear plant should be shut down. So they are not okay with this idea that the power plant should be shut down altogether. They say that there should be better practices could be incorporated with the help of the AERB on the how the spent nuclear fuel storage is being done. Uttarakhand panel seeks inputs on the Uniform Civil Code. I think we should just limit ourselves to this theme over here. UCC is important. Work for development of cooperatives, right? So frame uniform policies and states, says Amit Shah. Cooperatives, very, very important theme, right? So cooperatives, their importance. I've made a video on this long back. Previous year I had made this video. So you can have a look at this. It has covering everything about cooperatives. Plus, this was in context of having a separate ministry for cooperatives. So I've kept all the viewpoints over there with facts, everything in that video. 15 minutes, but your concept will be clear. Okay, so much has moved forward on trade, on visa. Bangladesh Minister of State, fine. Maybe enough for Bangladesh. Nirmala links inflation and state fuel taxes, fine. So states are not decreasing the fuel taxes, that is promoting inflation. So one of the arguments that she has given. We have more on the finance minister's viewpoint later. Okay, this is very important. Naga team constitutes talks on constitution. Okay, so what is happening? So we have a delegation who has come to Delhi, right? But before that, let us see what is the demand of the Naga people. So the government is in talks with some Naga groups. There are many groups over there, particularly NSCN, National Socialist Council of Nagaland, NSCN IM, and 7 Naga national political groups. Right, so they are having talks with them, the Indian government over there, and on what themes? So one thing is that this group should leave violence. That is a given, right? They should leave violence, and the demand for a separate state of Nagaland, Greater Nagaland or Nagaland, by integrating Naga-dominated areas. So this was the original demand of the NSCN. Actually, this is the main organization, and they were wanting Nagaland. That is all the Naga people in the state of Nagaland, of course. The nearby states around Nagaland. So Nagaland is something like this. Imagine the map of Northeast, and there are states around this. So this territory should be created and made Nagaland, and this also includes Myanmar also, right? So Myanmar also has Naga people over there. So separate state, separate country for this. This will not be accommodated, but yes, they were demanding for this thing. Okay. Next thing they want is to have a separate constitution. So separate constitution for Nagaland. So this again not permitted, right? Obviously, Indian government cannot permit having a separate constitution. That is not a policy. Besides, having a separate flag for Nagaland, right? So having a separate flag. Okay. So this was also this is a very sore point, and both are non-agreeable, non-amenable to the Indian government or the Indian negotiators. Then there is, with reference to Nagaland, there was a concern. In 2015, Prime Minister Modi made an announcement, 8 p.m. Okay, there was an announcement that Naga Accord has been signed. The leaders of the NSCN group had come, and Naga Accord was signed, and there was absolutely no transparency about it. What happened? So there was a concern that as part of the agreement, there was a concern that the Naga population of the surrounding states, So the boundaries of the the surrounding states would be incorporated into the state of Nagaland. So this was a concern. So here we have a clarification from the Naga delegation that there is no question of compromising on the boundaries of the nearby states, right? So this is also a strict no from the government. Okay, so what is happening now? So I think first we just have it. We have Nagaland, we have constitution, separate flag, and with reference to Nagaland again, boundary of the neighboring states may be accommodated, which this thing has been clarified. So what has a senior government official has said is that the Naga constitution, which is known as Sabo, so their constitution is known as this. This is important for your pre. Sometimes this term is seen in the news. It is associated with which of the following? Like this question can be asked. Okay, this is Sabo can be mentioned within the constitution itself. In fact, you should look at Article 371. Right? So in that, special provisions for respective states have been mentioned. So within that, maybe this thing Sabo can also be done. As far as flag is concerned, it will only be used for civil and cultural functions, but not in any government function. Right? So this thing has also come up. So some compromise on both sides we can be seen over here. So the center is clear that there cannot be two constitutions and two flags in the country. Right? So this thing, and the other clarification is there is no question of integration of Naga inhabited areas in other states with the existing state of Nagaland. Right? So this is the first time we have some transparency about the Naga accord. Okay, let's move forward. See, yeah. London Bridge is down. Okay. Ranil expands government with 37 ministries. We had Sri Lanka's president escaping during the protest. The new president was formed, so he had to obviously have his ministers also. President Trump wants to contest elections in 2024. Monetary tools alone can't tame inflation. Fine. So basically, inflation is going on the upside in a country, right? So the target is 4% plus minus 2%. 4% plus minus 2%. So we are upwards of that target. That is, we are upward of 6% target tolerance, 7.5%, 8%, something like this. And the main task of controlling inflation is that of RBI, Reserve Bank of India, which is responsible for monetary policy, making of monetary policy. Monetary means money, so policy with respect to money. So if the supply of money is more in the economy, then the things will get more expensive. If the supply of money is less in the economy, the demand will come down, so the price will also come down. Okay. So what she's saying is, and makes perfect sense, that monetary policy alone cannot do these things, right? They cannot alone do these things to check inflation. There are other factors at play also, which is not mentioned, and I presume this is supply side. For example, supply of fuel has been hampered. The currency is getting depreciated, so that is also pushing the crude prices. So this is further leading to increase in inflation. Okay. Besides, we can do some additional points also. What if the government starts taxing more? So if the taxes are increased, naturally the cost of those things will also increase. If you're buying something, let's say you're buying something that should be 10 rupees, but the tax is again 10% of this, so 11 rupees. But this tax is increased, so you are paying more money at the end of the day. So taxation is also there, and this taxation thing is basically fiscal policy. So supply side constraints, logistical constraints, and fiscal policy, they should work together in tandem, right? So this is important. Next, ECB lifts rates by record 75 basis points to fight inflation. Okay, so Europe is having inflation at 9.1%, very, very steep. Okay, so European Central Bank is again increasing their interest rate. so that people, the excess money is there in Europe, it goes into the banks. With that, what will happen? The supply of money will come down. So the demand for things in the economy will also come down because there is less money and the prices should come down. Okay, so they are increasing this. Now, what is it? How does it concern us? If the European Central Bank, if they increase the interest rate, isn't it attractive for somebody who has invested their money in India, etc., to park their money back into Europe? So that can take place, and that can lead to outflow of foreign indirect investments, right? So FIIs. Auto retail sales rose in August 8.31%. So an indication that economy is recovering, it is doing better. Digital lending rules meant to end regulatory arbitrage. I have sent this, send the explainer in the Telegram, right? You can refer that. Mental health issues costing $14 billion a year. I think I have a video on this. I think that will help you. Right, some issue of mental health that will be GS1, society, social justice, GS2. Okay, so this should be concluding our newspaper. Yes. So this is it from my side. Thank you for streaming into our channel IASPrimers with me, Shubhashish. Bye bye. All the best.